hear more from a very special guest today, that when we reached out to him to ask for him to be here and be of support to our collective voice, he without a doubt said yes. Our Congressman Jimmy Panetta, thank you for being here. A staunch woman, an advocate who helps in many ways, and not only in her role as an elected official, but really in the neighborhood. Gloria de la Rosa, City Council member. City Councilwoman from the city of Soledad, Gateway to the Pinnacles, Ana Velázquez. Chair of the school board at Gonzales Unified, Sonia Jaramillo. School board trustee for the Alisal Union School District, Noemí Armenta. Salinas Union High School board member, Eva Marie Martinez. Salinas Union High School board member, Vali Padilla Salzburg. Gonzales School board member, Araceli Flores. Alisal Union School board member, Marisela Cruz. And representing office of Ana Caballero, Aileen Reyes. I still haven't got your old last name. You know, it's important to recognize that we have this many women elected officials in the Salinas Valley. And when we see injustice and when we see indignity, we don't hesitate. You can see that we're collectively networked and we know how to work together. And so today we want to be reminded that history has shown that women are often the ones who give voice and presence to the ignored, the forgotten, those who are dehumanized. From Maria Andrade de Ochoa, a community mobilizer from Roseville, California, who gave voice to the children with disabilities, who were often considered less than. To Ella Baker, a civil rights leader, who worked tirelessly and often behind the scenes to give Black people a voice, especially Black women a voice. To the Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who used her life to bring dignity to children ignored and malnourished. To our own Dolores Huerta, who's still using her voice to lift the voice of the often ignored people who feed the world and all of us. We women have been a key figure in ensuring that in this United States of America, we live up to the values that made us great as a country. Dignity and respect for all people. Today we are here wearing our rebozos, our shawls. Rebozos are traditionally worn by women in many Latin American countries and other countries, and mothers often carry their children in these rebozos. Today we honor the mothers who so bravely carried their children to seek a better life for dignity, safety, and respect. And to the children clothes that hangs behind here. We also honor them, the children, who so bravely accompanied their parents, simply because they love them and they knew that their parents wanted what's best for them. To the mothers who may be in pain, even in our own community, we say collectively, we are with you. We are using our voice, we are using our power to ensure that Congress and Mr. President hear us. And what we are saying is this: please reunite these children with their mommies and their daddies. Mr. President, this is cruel. We American mothers demand that you reunify these children with their parents. We don't recognize family separation as a family value, nor do we recognize this as an American value. This has to stop. And so today we have two clear call to actions. But before we invite our colleague to share those two call to actions, let me introduce the Honorable Maria Orozco.
Thank you, Reverend, once again, feliz cumpleaños. The importance of coming together to speak one voice, to deliver one message, It's important for the women in this community, like in many communities, and even in our own communities. I'm sharing with Adriana that while we see this happening in our borders, it's actually happening in our neighborhoods. Children who are fearful that they will soon be separated from their families, mothers who I see often who come to me and share their stories and who are afraid of being deported and what will happen to their children. Thank you, Congressman Jimmy Panetta, for your work on this matter. Reunification of the children with their parents is non-negotiable. We are happy to see you here today joining us. Congressman Jimmy Panetta is dedicated to public service and proudly serves California's 20th Congressional District, which includes Monterey, San Benito, Santa Clara, and Santa Cruz counties, in the U.S. House of Representatives. First elected to Congress in 2016, he was sworn in as a member of the 115th Congress on January 3rd, 2017. In Washington, he has been a tireless advocate for compassionate, common sense, and comprehensive immigration reform. He works across the aisle to develop effective legislation to protect our dreamers, help temporary protected status TPS recipients, and continues to contribute to our country, make smart improvements to border security, and create a solid family unification process for these children who were separated from their parents at the border. As the grandson of immigrants who realized the American dream of freedom, prosperity, and equality, he firmly believes that diversity within our country must be valued. We are happy to have him here today. Congressman Panetta, welcome.
Thank you for all you do, not just for the people of Gonzales, but obviously the people of Monterey County, all the distinguished visitors that are here today, and of course Erica Padilla-Chavez, thank you for what you do. Thank you very much. There's a reason why my mother, Sylvia Panetta, thinks of Erica as one of her daughters, as a daughter. I can tell you that much because I think they're cut from the same cloth. Just like many of you, you are mothers, you are community members, you are here to basically provide for your families. That is what we are about. That is why we are here today. And so thanks to all of you for being here, for stepping up, for speaking up, and for speaking out against a policy that clearly is against the values that all of us stand for. Now look, I think many of you know, prior to my time in Commerce, I was a prosecutor here in Salinas. And I learned early on that when you are in a position to enforce the law, you don't just do what's right by the law. You must do what's right by the people affected by the law. So whenever you are in a position to enforce the law, that means you must use your discretion. You must use your compassion, and of course you must use your common sense. And so I do believe that is why under the Bush and under the Obama administrations, when it came to families who came to our border, who were fleeing violence to seek asylum and seeking asylum, or families who took risks to come here to live that American dream, I do believe that those administrations made it a point to keep those families together because they demonstrated discretion when it came to enforcing our laws at the border. They showed empathy for the families that came to our border, and they demonstrated an understanding of what our nation's values are about. That is why so many people from so many backgrounds, mothers and fathers, Democrats and Republicans, citizens and non-citizens, were all disheartened, we were all disturbed, and yes, we were disgusted when the administration implemented its zero-tolerance policy to intentionally separate those families fleeing to our border. It was, I believe, an ill-conceived policy that was not only compassionless, but really seemed vindictive as a way to deter people from coming to this country to live that American dream, or a way to use as leverage for more border security. But as we know, and I believe why we're here today, and what was especially troubling, was the impact that such a policy had on the children and parents who took that risk to travel north and come to our border just to be torn apart when they got to this country. And what was so troubling is that the impact that this policy had on those families, what I believe is a cornerstone to the values of this country. And so based on our outcry, that is why the President did what he said he could not do. And he said that, and he signed that executive order, which stopped those separations that he caused. But for some families, I have to say, it was too late. It was too late. Now on Wednesday, I visited with Senator Warner and 3 other congressional members, some of those children who were purposefully separated at the border. I went to a facility in Virginia, about 50 miles outside of Washington, D.C., where there were 15 boys and girls who were at this facility, who were there as a result of this separation policy. And I can tell you, though, that this facility was nothing like the horrific pictures that we saw on the news in regards to the cages and the sleeping on the cement with the tinfoil blankets. It was a nice facility. We saw that. But I do believe that although these children looked healthy, we could not see the long-lasting effects that this separation policy has on those kids. And that is why my colleagues and I, 4 others in Congress, worked directly with Senator Dianne Feinstein to co-author and co-introduce the Keep Families Together Act, a law that would prohibit arbitrary separation of families. It would establish a family unity preference. It would discourage the separation of siblings, and it would require the development of reunification policies and procedures. It is why that as a member of the House Armed Services Committee, when we were doing markup for the National Defense Authorization Act, that I put forward an amendment to ensure that no Department of Defense facilities would be used to house those children. It is why we are here today, and it is why we will be here every day moving forward to not just speak out against this policy, but to remind this administration of our values as a country and a community. Actually, I don't need to tell you, because we here on the Central Coast, we get it. We live it. Immigration is the foundation to who we are. That is why I am here in front of you. That is why all of us are here today, as a community, as a nation of risk takers. That is why we will continue to take that risk, to stand against such policies, and to stand up for all families who take the risk to come here. Because we know, we believe, that it is our values that motivate us to fight against any policy and anybody, foreign or domestic, who is against our values that have shaped and defined our past, and our values that will continue to define us as a nation of, by, and for we, all of us, the people.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. So we have a few women also that would like to share a few words, but before I begin, let me introduce a few other women elected officials who just walked in. Carmen Gill, representing Salinas Valley Memorial Hospital. Carissa Purnell, also a board member of Salinas Valley Memorial Hospital. Ruth Paz joined us with the Alisal Union School Board. Like I said, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us. So thank you, ladies, for being here today. Now I'd like to pass the mic to City Councilwoman Gloria de la Rosa, who would like to say a few words. And following her will be Gonzalez Union School Board member, Araceli Flores, who is also a licensed clinical social worker, and will speak a little bit more around what the issues that Jimmy already touched on, which is the trauma.
Good morning, everyone. This issue, when I first saw it, it opened up a big wound for myself. Some of my comadres know my story, some of them don't, but I have a daughter that's 44 years old right now. That was taken away. I was married, legally married. She had dual citizenship, Greek, and when I saw everything that was happening, I was very emotional like I am right now. That separation of taking away your children, how cruel can you be? And what it does to family, what it does to a mother. I had the flashbacks come back again. Maricela and I were at Naleo, and I remember Maricela when we were hearing all the political stuff, and Maricela her tears started just flowing. And I sat there numb, and I said, oh God. And I went to my room, and my husband was not there, and I started crying. I said, God, how can you be so cruel? How can people be so cruel to separate families from their children? These children, where are they? Where are those children? You said you went and saw some of them. They're saying they lost track of some of them? How can a government lose track of children? How are these parents feeling? I don't know where my child's at. Who is my child with? We hear so many bad things that happen to children. That's what I felt when my child was taken away from me. I didn't know she was with the father, but who was with him? And just that trauma that I went through. And I have to tell all of you, my comadres in my community, that I am so glad that people prayed for me, like we're praying for these families right now. Women are coming to us right now in our community saying, Gloria, we're afraid. We're afraid of what's happening. So I had somebody praying for me. A lot of people were praying for me, my family, that my child would be, that we would be reunited. And we were. God is good, and we need to continue to keep praying for those mothers and parents that are separated right now for these children. And because, yes, Araceli will talk more about the trauma that my daughter and my family, we all suffered that trauma of the separation of my daughter. So again, we're here to take a stance. These families need to be reunited. Thank you.
As I mentioned, I think we don't need him. As I mentioned, Araceli, not only is she representing the Gonzales School Board, she is also a licensed clinical social worker and works with many families up and down the Salinas Valley. So she will share with us some information that I think it's important for us to talk about, which is the trauma that these children are bearing. Thank you, Araceli, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. First of all, I had something scripted, but let's be honest, this is an issue of the heart, and as a mother, I can't read what I want to say. So I have to share that I too, when my son was born, he had to be taken to UCSF, and he was without me for 3 days. And in those 3 days, I was a hot mess. I was sad, I was angry, I couldn't get out of bed because I didn't have my son with me. And that was because it was a medical issue. These children are separated from their parents, their family, a known adult, for no reason at all. And I can't even imagine what those parents and what those children are feeling. Having no one to turn to when they're having nightmares, crying, looking for a known, trusting adult to comfort them. They may be in nice facilities, but the adults in those facilities are not known to them. They don't have relationships with them. And these children are having nightmares, I'm sure, because when you separate a child from their known, trusting parent or adult, they're abandoned, they're alone, and they're afraid. It may be safe, they may have food and water and shelter, but their trusting adult to make them feel secure is not there. And the way that this is going to impact them as they get older is it's going to be a memory stamped into their brain. They will forever hold this. It's called trauma, and the trauma never goes away. If we all adults remember that one incident that happened to us, that made us scared, that frightened us, that scared us, and no matter where we are in life, it stays with us, whether it's a scary movie or whether your son has to go to the hospital without you for a few days, or whether your child is taken away from you and stolen from you from your husband. The trauma stays with you forever. And these kids are now going to have to face having to deal with emotional, mental, and behavioral issues as they get older. And some of these kids don't understand that their parents did not ship them away. Some of these children don't understand that their parents didn't give permission. So some of these children are angry at their own parents. So what happens when they're reunified? Now the parent and child relationship is broken. And now that parent and that child have to do all this work that takes sometimes years to heal. For what? There was no purpose. It doesn't matter whether in a cage or in a nice facility. Children need to be with their parents. Children need to be comforted and emotionally regulated by someone that they can trust. And right now, these kids some of them are lost. Some of them, their parents the country doesn't even know where they're at. I can't imagine what that parent must be feeling like, what it's doing to that mom, what it's doing to that child. And as a country, we need to understand that this policy has allowed for trauma to exist in these kids' life. We did that to them. And it's not okay, and we cannot be okay with it. You know, whether you have kids or not, there's a child in your life. Look at the child and imagine they were ripped away from you, and what would that do to your soul? These kids are having to live with this, and this is going to be a nightmare that they're going to have to heal from for a long time. It's called post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's real. Anxiety, nightmares, frustration, irritability, depression. That's all going to exist now in these babies' life. It was uncalled for, unnecessary, and we cannot be okay with it. And, you know, we need to be there for them, and I thank Erica for inviting me here for making this move and allowing our voices to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Araceli, for doing what you do. You know, we have a diversity of talents in this group of ladies, and we are so very fortunate in the Salinas Valley to be able to benefit from all these skills and all this talent that really is rooted in heart. And that's what makes this group of women, and really all the women that couldn't join us today, very, very special. I'd like to give the mic for a few minutes to Eileen, who has a message from Assemblywoman Ana Caballero.
Good morning. Assemblymember Caballero commends all the women, the mothers, and the community for standing together with the purpose of reuniting the children with their parents. The goal is to protect the parents and also to protect those seeking asylum. The need for action is now to reunify the families, and we need to make sure that steps are being taken so that can happen as soon as possible. You might also wonder why we all have teddy bears here at hand. Assemblymember Caballero has been committed to work with U.S. Senator Kamala Harris to be able to provide and deliver those teddy bears to the children. They might not have their parents right there, but we're hoping that with providing some of these teddy bears, it can bring some comfort while that is taking place, which we'll hope will be as soon as possible. On behalf of Assemblymember Caballero, we thank you for being here and for supporting this effort to reunite the children with their families.
And now, so you may be be asking, what can we do? We all can do something. But following with what Araceli shared and Gloria shared, let's start by taking care of the emotions of these children. Let's start there. And that was a decision that this group of collective women came up with. So this was not an Erica decision, this was a collective decision. And I so love working with my comadres in that way. So now I'd like to introduce Patty Padilla-Salzberg, who will do the invitation to the call to action.
Thank you, Erica. Let's give ourselves a round of applause for all of us for being here today. It feels so good. This is so emotional that we can come together in a time of need. We are so upset with what is happening. And now here we are. We are going to do something. So what can we do? We've heard how difficult these children are feeling. We can't even imagine what they feel right now. So what can we do? We're going to do a call to action. We're going to now have a drive, and I'm going to say stuffed animals because we have teddy bears, we have a lamb, we have dolls. So we're going to do a drive because what does this do? This provides comfort to the children, and that's what we're doing today. We're also going to do a drive for blankets, and we're going to assure that, supported by Congressman Jimmy Panetta and also by Assembly Ana Caballero, that this will get to the children. We want you to all feel comfortable that it will get, because I have heard people say, well, we donated, we give, but we don't know if it gets there. So today, we're here to say that we give you our word, it will get to the children. So today, please know, another thing that's very important for us to know, what we can do, we need to register to vote. And all of us that are already registered to vote, exercise the right to vote, ladies and gentlemen. We need to make a difference. This November is going to be so important. Make your voice count. Make a difference. Go out there and vote, and assure that anybody that you know that's not registered to vote, let's do this. And let's do this together, porque sí se puede.
So we have flyers here of collection centers where you can leave your teddy bears or your stuffed animals. We want to thank the Alisal Union School District for opening up their family resource centers so that they could be places of acceptance for these blankets and stuffed animals. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's event. Oh, and right here too, the Farmworkers Center will accept that too. So there's a series of events happening throughout the Central Coast. Tomorrow there is another call to action. Where is that going to be held?
We have one here in Salinas at the Teamsters, on the corner of Teamsters, at the Market Street and Sanborn. That will start at 5 o'clock. Then we have the one in Greenfield, Camino Real by the gazebo at the very end there, and that's going to start at 5 to 7. We have the King City one, that's going to start from 12 to 2 o'clock, and that's at the very entrance of King City. That's around here, and then Widow by the Bay, Monterey, and that starts at what time? 4 o'clock. So let's get out there, let's show support for these families. Our border brothers and sisters are counting on us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and let's get to work. Register to vote, and let's collect those stuffed animals. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jimmy, for being here. Thank you to the United Farmworkers for opening up their doors to us. Thank you. Thank you, teachers, for being here, teachers.
Yes.
Okay, wait. Let me get all the women together here. Let's put our congressman right here. In the middle. You're gonna put them right here. Right here. Where's the congressman? You guys can all listen to talk to me safety. All for a very low cost. Women, come on in. Mujeres, vengan. Todas somos líderes. Vamos. Vamos, aquí con el niño, aquí con el. Okay? Come on in, come on in. This is for everybody. Okay. Oh, I love that. Okay. Hey, Alec, somebody take a picture for me.
Let's get this out to the media. Let's get it out.
Jose, take a video.
flyer with it, let people know that they can go donate to these centers in Allison.
Con Jimmy, sí se puede, compañeros.
Sí se puede. Okay, I gotta cut it. There's so much for my ex-wife.